gentlemen, you are more than welcome to another episode 3, season 2 of the Coffee to Level show. Delighted to have you here, and thank you for being here on this beautiful Friday, brought to you by Wigwam Mastermind Coaching. I'd like in particular to welcome our guest here this morning, zooming in all the way from La Rochelle in sunny France, and it is Alison Roux. Alison, please say hello, cheers us with your coffee mug. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien.
Oh, and so it begins, and so it begins. The gauntlet has been thrown down. All right, I'm not even going to go there. You're more than welcome, Alison. Folks, let me just tell you a little bit about Alison before we bring the lady in herself. Alison Roux, R-O-U-X, lovely French second name. Dun Roman Consultants is her business. She says her business is a sales agency. Personally, she says she works with coaches and consultants who have online businesses with marketing funnels in place, who simply outsource their sales function to me. Basically, she's a closer. Doesn't look like a heavy armed closer, but she's a sales closer. For 2021, the hope is to expand the business to be a small sales agency where clients come to me when they have a sales and or business development requirement, and I provide them with a freelance professional who can meet their requirement. Sounds fantastic. How long established? 1 year, and she says, and what a year to start. She says she's a solopreneur at present, but hoping the agency will get on its feet early in 21. And knowing Alison, that's more than a hope. That will absolutely happen. Looking forward to it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Alison. She says, I'm a Donegal girl who's been living and working in France for the past 12 years. I've worked in sales throughout my professional career, and a good chunk of that was in the recruitment sector, where one of the things I enjoyed most was having a real impact on people's lives. Finding the right career path is so important after all. However, after having a much awaited baby, and we've all met Luca, and we might meet him this morning, the traditional corporate life of long days, traveling for work and constant pressures was no longer compatible with my personal life. Here's where it gets very interesting. I'd also had a life-threatening health scare in 2013, and both Luca and I had life-threatening emergencies during his delivery. Wow. So I appreciate better than most that life is precious and not to be wasted. So true. So I left my job, she says, married the love of my life, Johan, moved house to somewhere more suitable for a small family, and then started to set up my business at the end of 2019. And she says, although I've pivoted from recruitment, I've stayed in the sales field, and that's where my expertise is, and I enjoy it. Blah, blah, blah. However, she says, I wanted to continue to get that feel-good factor, love this, from working with services who have a positive impact on other people's lives. And that's partly why I chose to work with online coaches and consultants. It's a very supportive and positive environment to be in, and I love it. And then something nobody knows about you, when you hear this, right? Interesting. I'm looking forward to picking up this one, Alison. She says, at 13, I managed to get thrown out of a school before even being accepted into it. And I think that beats you, Sarah Ward. I think that beats you. Yes, it does. All right, good stuff. Listen, it's lovely to have you all here. Alison, thank you for that. Alison Roux, we can Google your business. We can Google Dun Roman. We can find you on LinkedIn. We can find you on Facebook, right? So that's not why you're here. We may have lured you here thinking that's what it was about. But we want to know about who is Alison Roux and who were you before you were Alison Roux? Bring us back to Donegal, will you please, up through those early years.
No problem. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you very much for having me here. It really is a pleasure to be with you all. So Alison Little is my maiden name. So I'm from Donegal born and bred. My father came from down your direction. He's a Limerick man, which is kind of important because I was always raised a Munster girl despite being in Ulster. There was to be no qualms about that. My mum is from a farming family. So I suppose we always had our feet well grounded, and both my parents worked in the bank. They met actually back in the days before electronic transfers, when transfers were happening. Mum worked in one bank, Dad worked in the other, and they simply walked down the street to do the transfers at the end of the day between the branches, and that's how they met. In Donegal town quite a while ago, I'm not sure, 40 something years ago. So that was the beginning of our story, and it had a lot to do with us as well, because in the bank we transferred a lot, which is part of how I got to like languages so much, how I was happy to move overseas, and I suppose adaptability in my life as well. So that's where I hailed from in Donegal, and that's where my parents have retired to, which is also part of the business name. So Dunroman Consultants is the name I've called my business. Hopefully people, when they come to our business, they come to the right place. They need look no further. But the very original part of the name is my mum. After a number of years and transfers in the banks and various moves, when they eventually built their house in Downings in Donegal, said, this house is Dunroman, I'm going no further. And that's where it came from originally.
Boolabus, boolabus. So is the family home also called Dunroman?
Yeah, it is.
I never knew that.
Family home. It's called Dunroman, and they actually, after they retired, they both took early retirement and they ran a little B&B. So it was very appropriate then that they had a B&B and people were coming to Dunroman for the day.
But I love it. I love it. Love it. So great stuff and lovely story. School and getting kicked out.
Yeah, so that's part of the moves. I was born in Donegal, as you know, and raised there. But when I was 12, 13, we were transferred to Northern Ireland. Dad was transferred to Lisburn. And because the UK system is different to ours, I had already done first year in secondary school. But in the north, they start secondary school earlier. So I was going into third year and midstream. So in Lisburn, there were no places available in schools. And my parents had this fantastic idea to present me to an all-girls school in Belfast, which did not float my boat at all. I was not delighted about it. And of course, Northern Ireland in those days was Northern Ireland, and there was a certain religion came into it and so on and so forth. So we're Church of Ireland, and I was sent to meet the headmistress of this Protestant, very well-to-do, very reputable school. But I wasn't delighted to have to go here. And so the interview happened. My parents were there and they were through the whole interview. At the end, the headmistress said to me, do you have any questions? And I really didn't want to go. So to put a span in the works, my only question was, can I continue to learn Irish here, please? To which I was promptly told I might be better suited to St. Malachy's or whatever it was down the road.
Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. There's a girl who likes stirring it from an early age. I love it.
I guess I know what I like and I know what I don't. So yeah, so Mum was livid with me that evening.
Oh, I've no doubt. I've no doubt. Look, thanks for sharing that. Great story. Great story. But anyway, they eventually took you into a school, did they? And they educated
So
you?
I eventually got into school, Friends School Lisburn. So I was lucky in that, or somebody else maybe a little less lucky. There was quite an army presence in Lisburn, and somebody had been posted somewhere else. And their family therefore was moving with them, which meant that there was a space available in Friends School Lisburn. It was around the corner from home. We could walk there. It was a Quaker school and I loved it. Everything about it. It was fantastic. They supported every child, be they academically or sports bound. They were just open to everybody. They had such a great attitude. It was amazing. And completely contrary to this other school, on my last day, just a little anecdote, we all had yearbooks and we got everybody to sign your yearbooks, and the headmaster, who was Trevor Green at the time, was walking past, and I asked Mr. Green would he sign my yearbook, and he did, and he wrote in it, "Go Canary and Boherlat," in Irish. And I thought, now that's the difference. That makes it all the difference.
That's just beautiful. That's just beautiful. Do you know that I wrote down Trevor Green's name there because the fact that you remembered him so fondly and remembered his name and he had an impact on who you've become, I just think that's wonderful. We've no idea whose lives we intersect with and the meaning that comes from them. So you've got two polar opposites there. You've got the original nun and you've got Trevor Green who made it all right. So yeah,
Exactly.
Well done. Sorry, it wasn't a nun, forgive me, it was a headmistress.
It was indeed.
Listen, great stuff, great stuff. So why France?
Why France? I learned French at a young age. We spent our summer holidays here as a family, I suppose from probably 6 up until 12. We'd come over every couple of years, and for some reason I said to my parents, someday I'm going to live in France. So I always knew that. I always enjoyed languages. I had spoken Irish when I was young, lost it, but did speak Irish young. And then when I was 12, I did an exchange with a French family. So came over for a couple of weeks, and we did that every summer for a couple of years. So I kind of always had French in the background and continued it then during school, and did it for my A-levels, and did it in university. And then when I did my university degree, I had the opportunity to change and do a master's, which was a trilingual master's, which saw me in Paris for a year, Paris, Oxford and Berlin. So then I was qualified in French. I had a degree in France as well, a business degree from a French university. And work happened, and worked in an Irish recruitment company, and they were growing their French operations, and I had the opportunity to transfer. So I said, well, now is a good time. It was pretty good timing, 2008. So there was a bit of recession kicking in already in Ireland. I worked in the construction sector, so I was definitely feeling it in that front. I think we'd had 2 summers where I hadn't seen the sun, and was getting very fed up with that, and had this opportunity that presented itself. So I said, look, now or never. I said I was going to do it. Now's the time. So I took that leap and moved over to France. The head office was in Paris, but I actually lived down south in Aix-en-Provence for the first 6 years near Marseille. Beautiful, beautiful place. And that was it. Spent 6 years there, transferred over to La Rochelle with my now husband after 6 years. And we've been here for 6 years as well. So 12 years in total.
Lovely, but you skipped over that romantic. Yeah, look at Shelley. So I'm in Aix-en-Provence, and then moved over with my now husband. So give us a bit of the dirt on that. How did that all happen? Was it like Mammy and Daddy walking down making lodgements?
No, not at all. It was much more modern on internet. So we met on a dating site in the south of France. We had a terrible first date. And I think it was only out of pity that I met him again. So we went to an Italian restaurant, and he had risotto to play it safe. And then something crunched, and he said, oh my God, they've left a shell in this risotto. I think it was a scallop risotto. And no, it was a tooth implant that he'd had that decided to pop out on the first date. Horrific timing. And he was mortified, and I was disgusted, to be honest. So it was a terrible, but I felt so sorry for him. I met him again, and the rest is history, I suppose.
Oh, that's great. You know what we should do, folks, lads? We should bring Johan in to get the real story.
He'd tell you exactly the same. He was going, I've got a hole in my boot, and he was mortified.
Lovely, but that's just great. That's just great. Come here. You have mentioned in your bio about some health scares. Would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So I was always a bigger girl. I was always overweight, and got overweight, and I thought that my move to France was going to solve that I'd be eating fabulous salads all the time, and that I was going to lose all this excess weight. But the reality was I was traveling with work, and they have fantastic croissants in France, and you're eating in restaurants 2 or 3 days a week, if not more, and the weight piled on. And I needed to do something about it, and every diet I tried didn't work. So I had a gastric band in 2010, which had a limited success. I certainly lost some weight, but it got to the point that it was unmanageable. If I let an ice cube melt in my mouth, I wouldn't have been able to actually swallow the water. It was too much. So that wasn't really a lifestyle you could cope with. So in 2013, I stepped up and had a gastric bypass. So that was, the overall result was fine, but the process was complicated. So the operation itself had a few complications. I think I was operated on Tuesday, and on Saturday I wasn't very well. And thanks to my now husband, Johan, who had some medical training and knew some warning signs, because I was probably a little bit delirious already. But he sounded the alarm, said, she's really not well. I think we need to do something here. And a couple of hours later, I turned out to be, I'd had infections. My internal stitches had burst. So gastric acid and whatever was flowing into spaces it's not supposed to. So that made my left lung collapse, which meant obviously breathing difficulties. I got peritonitis, which is a potentially lethal infection. I also got severe sepsis, which is another potentially lethal infection. So a couple of hours later, I was in intensive care. I was intubated on life support and put into a medically induced coma. And that's the way I stayed for a few days. but
My
obviously
goodness.
came out of it.
And you know what? Thanks indeed, Seamus. Come here. That's unbelievable. And dare I say it, unbelievable. Looking at the perfectly healthy human being sitting in front of us today. So, congratulations. And look, it's great that Johan was there and had some training and knew what to look for, because
Absolutely. I mean, I know I owe my life. I did speak certainly to the nurses and to the medical staff, and they did say, look, 5 minutes more was 5 minutes too late. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So I owe him an awful lot.
Good stuff.
But a little anecdote on that, just when I have you, because we say that when you're in a coma, you can hear things, and that's true. And at our wedding, when I did a speech at our wedding, and I said, I did hear my parents talk to me when I was in a coma, and that was quite upsetting. And I said, but the reason we're here today on our wedding day was because I heard Johan too, who equally, when I was in the coma, said, you're the girl of my dreams. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Please fight this and get through this. And I said, I heard you. So here we are.
I love it. Showing the rest of us males up. Good morning, Johan. But I'm delighted. That's a lovely story. I was watching Princess Shelley there and said the Kleenex are out already. Listen, Alison, that's lovely. That's lovely. And of course, little Luca, we've met little Luca a number of times. So tell us about little Luca, but also tell us about the health challenges you both experienced.
Yeah, so little Luca is a very happy result of 6 IVFs. So he was a long-awaited for baby. And he is our definite little angel. He's a bit of a gate crasher, so I'm hoping that he's having lunch at the moment and he's not going to stick his head in, but nothing's guaranteed with him. So he's not at creche at the moment because he's got chicken pox, so he's not allowed to go to creche. So yeah, he was a happy result of 6 IVF attempts. I think he's our little blessing. I think I've maybe mentioned this to you in the past, Colin, that I sadly lost my mum in 2017. And when mum was going through her cancer treatment, she would, like every mum, say, if there's only something I could do, if there's only something I could make it happen for you. And of course, there's nothing she could do. And sadly, mum was taken from us. She wasn't successful in her battle. The cancer came back and she was taken far too young. And we took a break from IVF at that stage. And a few months later, we decided to pick it up again. And I kind of prayed to mum at that stage and said, Mum, if you can help me now, please do. So we had the IVF. The doctors weren't very optimistic at all. So this is your least likely chance of something happening, but give it a go. You never know. To an extent that when the test came back and it was positive, I said, there's something wrong with this. I didn't know what was wrong with the test. It was different to the others, but didn't expect and didn't immediately realize that we were having a baby. And that turned out to be little Luca. And when I went to have my first scan, the gynecologist gave me my due date, which was the 12th of April, and it was my mum's birthday. And I said, thanks, Mum. Thanks, Mum. So he's our little angel. And yes, we had our complications. I got an infection during childbirth, during labour, which unfortunately then passed on to Luca. And because of my gastric bypass problems and infections, I had various adhesions, so it would have been risky for me to have a C-section. That wasn't really a possibility. Unfortunately, after 20 hours of labour, nor was an epidural. I wasn't allowed that at that stage either, because that was a risk of meningitis. So we had to do it the old-fashioned way. We had to get him out as quickly as possible, and it probably was a bit touch and go at the end. He had respiratory problems and had to be a little bit resuscitated. And I consequently hemorrhaged. And so they very panically brought me in, my baby, to say hello and just in case. And I said, just in case what? and took him away again. And I realized that it was just in case we didn't see each other again. So luckily everything was absolutely fine. We're both fit and healthy with no issues. But yeah, I seem to have an awful habit of skimming things.
Alison Roux, it's just wonderful. Come here. I appreciate on behalf of everybody here in the cafe this morning, and anybody who listens to this replay, appreciate you going and sharing your story like that. There was no compulsion on you to do so. But the wonderful thing that has evolved in the Coffee at 11 show is if people choose to go deep, they share of themselves, but there's somebody that the story will impact upon. Somebody will listen to this and they'll have experienced some of what you've experienced, and therefore they'll know that they're not alone. So on behalf of all of those people, I want to say thank you, Alison Roux.
Not at all. I'm a bit of an open book, and it's my pleasure.
That's great. It's great. It's a real joy. And that lovely, I see Seamus Donovan put in so many miracles into the chat box there. Little Luca, due date on your mother's birthday, and your mother saying, it's something I could do to help. Well, it appears that she did.
Exactly.
Nailed it. Come here, listen, we better talk about business, if that's okay. Done, Roman.
Yes.
As I said, we can Google it, but would you bring us up through the year? It's not long going, but it had a trajectory before COVID, and then that changed. So before COVID and now in COVID, please.
Yeah, it's a baby business. It's very young. It's just about a year old. So as I mentioned to you, I'm working in sales and business development. And prior to COVID, I've been working with coaches and consultants, and as I mentioned in the bio, it's something I want to do because I love the feel-good factor of working in services that help people and that have an impact on people. So that was something I wanted to do. And prior to COVID, I was working with a few clients who were running events, which of course it hadn't been an issue at all. I hadn't considered it to be an issue at all until COVID came and events couldn't happen anymore and those got cancelled. So whilst after I think 5 months of building up the business, I was getting going and was getting back to kind of income levels that I would have been potentially used to. And it was great to have a profitable business within a few months. Then I went right back down to zero. But I knew when I was setting a business up, like everybody does, it doesn't happen overnight. And I had set the business up that I had a couple of years that I knew that I was going to be okay without relying on it. So I went back to the drawing board, and I didn't really change the game plan that much. I still wanted to stay in that area of coaching and consulting, but very much in the online, so it wouldn't be events anymore. And that's what I'm doing. So I've been working with various people at various stages. So there's different, I suppose, ways you can do it. Some people do launches, and other people are evergreen, so it's running all the time. And I've worked with a few people on launches, and now I'm just starting with somebody in the States on an evergreen. So that's where it's going. Hopefully now by early 2021, by January, I mean, certainly in December, I'll be at capacity, personally be at capacity. So hopefully then early 2021, the idea would be to build up the agency side of things. It's something I think, and certainly it's quite big in the States, but I think it's great for people as well to give flexibility, not just from a client point of view, but other people like me who are maybe mummies, who maybe want that better work-life balance, who want to have control of the hours that they work, who want to be able to take their kids to school and pick them up in the evenings. It offers all of that, and it's location independent. So it has a lot of pluses to it. And I'd love to be able to match people who have that requirement and people who want to have that flexibility. So that's the plan for 2021, is to build up that side of things.
Alison, that's just wonderful. Just wonderful. I'll tell you what I love about it. I love the fact that, you started off, things were going swimmingly, and then with the rest of the world, it fell off a cliff. And it seems like you didn't panic. You had set it up, as you said. So you had a couple of years of perhaps a runway to get it to a certain point. But you didn't then do nothing. You didn't sort of sit back and say, well, we'll wait till events come back. You, to use that overused word in COVID, you pivoted. And you made a decision that it's going to be online from now on, which of course that allows you the freedom. And I understand part of the plan is to move back to Donegal. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bit of a COVID consequence as well, because my father is on his own in Donegal. I'd always planned on moving back home. Home for me, obviously, completely different kettle of fish for Johan. But I had always wanted to go back. But with COVID, I think that's accelerated things a bit. Dad is on his own. I have a brother who lives in Perth, so the other side of the world. And I'm conscious of him being in his own. But equally, the other thing that COVID showed us is we love our life here in France. We're blessed to live in a beautiful area, but our friends aren't near us. And when a lot of people were suffering because of isolation and not seeing their friends, we said, well, actually, nothing's changed for us. And we said that's a little bit sad. We don't have friends around us. And even from a practicality point of view, I think it's been 15 months since Johan and I got out for a meal, the two of us, because we don't have babysitters here. So poor Granda, I think, is going to get roped into that when we move home. So there are lots of different aspects to that. But I suppose the beauty of my business being location independent, as long as I have my laptop, my phone and an internet, I can work from anywhere. So the plan would be come back to France probably for the summer, catch up on a few sun rays, see the French family, but still live most of the time in Donegal and really go for the best of both worlds.
No, wonderful. And we wish you the very best, go for the best of both worlds, because I'll tell you, as a family unit, you deserve it for sure. Actually, something I do know about you that you didn't put in the bio, but you shared with me before, is that Johan thinks Donegal is the sunniest place on earth. Tell us all about that.
He does. So
Wait till you hear this, Jean. Wait till you hear this, Jean. It's great.
we've been seeing each other for 8 years, and he's obviously been over to Ireland a number of times. So I think he's been to Ireland 8 or 9 times, and at different times of the year. He's been at Christmas time. He has been in April, May. He has been in July and August. He's been in September and October. So he's been different times a year. And every time he comes, we get beautiful blue skies and sunshine. And Dad's friends keep saying, is Johan coming? Fantastic. We're going to get Johan weather. So they're delighted when he's coming because they think he brings it. But Johan thinks that this is the world's best secret, that the weather in Ireland is amazing and we just don't want too many tourists. So he thinks that I don't know how we've managed to keep it under the radar in Dublin, but from Dublin and Donegal it's just this little amazing haven. And we're very lucky that we're in a beautiful part of the country as well. But he can't get over it. And every time, he's never had more than 2 or 3 days. And we've been there for 3 weeks at a time. He's never had more than 2 or 3 days that it's maybe been a bit grey or wet. He thinks it's the world's best kept secret.
I just think that's wonderful. I think we should bring Johan in 3 years from now into the cafe and ask him what's he thinking.
Give him 6 months once we've moved over, see how he feels.
That's great. It's great. Look, it's a lovely story, a very human story. H to H. I heard that recently. I may have said it to you. People talk about B2C and they talk about B2B, but in fact, all business is H to H. It's human to human. And that's why I love these human stories on the Coffee to 11 show. Alison Roux, it's been a great pleasure having you on the Coffee to 11 show today, and thank you for that. We're going to go to Q&A from the floor with Princess Shelley in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like to ask you one last question. That is, what are you taking with you from COVID? What are you not going to let go of that you found in COVID? Thanks, Alison.
So what am I taking with me from COVID? A few things, to be honest. It's obviously been a difficult time for a lot of people and there have been a lot of challenges. But I would say on the whole, my experience of COVID has been positive. From a professional point of view, it has allowed me to pivot, and I've seen so many businesses pivot and find ways to keep their businesses afloat and stay positive and keep going. I think that's been amazing. I think seeing people being resourceful that way has been exceptional. So that's been a positive from a COVID perspective, despite the difficult times that people are going through. They've really dug deep, I think, and made the most of a bad situation. And from a personal point of view, I think the solidarity, everybody looking out for one another, has been heartwarming, really. We've learned to look after our neighbours. We've made sure that we're checking in with people that we maybe don't see as often. And I think that we've had a bit of a difficult reminder that we do need to look after one another. We don't get a million chances to be with people. And when we don't have those chances available to us with isolation and with confinement, then we really do need to make the most of them and make sure we keep in touch. And COVID has been a bit of a harsh reminder of that as well, but nonetheless brought the better out in people. So COVID to me has been tricky enough, but positive on the whole. So that's what I'm keeping with me from COVID.
So Alison, it's been a joy. We wish you every success in 2021 with what's going down the track for your agency, and looking forward to continuing to get to know you and wish you well. Going to pass over to apparently some people's favourite part of the show, whatever that's about, no idea, to Princess Shelley, the shy and retiring Princess Shelley.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Alison. Well, you had me, I can count on one hand the number of times that tears have dripped down just off the end of my jaw here, and that was when you shared, like Colm said, the human to human story. And of course, we've chatted a few times before, and you're just always so, like you say, you're an open book, and it's just such a breath of fresh air, Alison. And thank you for sharing it with the cafe today, because like we say, you're gonna touch people and help people that you just have no idea. So thank you for being truly Alison Roux today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It is a rare opportunity, but it's also a privilege. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was looking around the cafe and I saw lots of nodding. You know, I'm tuning in all the time to people's, because of course that's the thing with Zoom now, you know, we've only got head and shoulders, and I'm watching Seamus was nodding along the whole time, and Tommy was finding it very funny about the Johan weather, and he was watching everybody, and when you were telling us through the darkness of those 2 touch and go times for your health, and everybody got this kind of furrowed lines here, and we were all with you, you know, so great engagement in the cafe. You had us all there with you throughout your journey. Some lovely comments that came in. Seamus joining us in one of my favourite counties that I don't live in, all the way down in Cork. Seamus just saying happy Friday, and Tim, happy Friday. And like a true cafe, you know, people come and go, you know, they come in for when they can and then they scoot off. We met Sarah a little bit earlier on, and she said sorry that she had to head off, that stop by if you're ever in Limerick, she said. So that's an open invitation. Something we often said when the Coffee at 11 show was born and grew into this scrumptious thing that it's become, thanks to Colm embarking on this journey. We've often spoke about all getting together at some stage, and that's something I'm confident will happen. I'm seeing thumbs up and nods. It's nearly a pilgrimage at this stage, so you'll definitely be expected to be there wherever that happens. As I'm sure will Sarah, she won't miss it. Paul, thanks for being in the cafe, Paul. I don't think we've met before. He said he loves the name of the business. Now, this is going to keep me on my toes now, this, because it's some mouthful, and I apologise, Paul, if I'm going to pronounce it wrong. He said, love the name of the business. I have a friend who has named his home Desildaforus, I think. I'm not sure now, am I pronouncing that correctly? Something similar. So yeah, when I saw that comment come in, I was like, oh, sugar, that's going to keep me on my toes. Feel free to collect me in a little while. And then Seamus said, when you were talking us through those miracles, you know, and I saw everybody soften when you spoke about Lucas' due date. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's a movie, like you'd seen in a movie, and everybody softened all of a sudden. I just saw it. And Seamus said so many miracles. Colm had already shared that. Eamon said, thank you so much for sharing, Alison. There's so much inspiration and power in your story. And the word power there, I couldn't agree with you more, Eamon. That's absolutely true. So powerful, you know. Seamus said again, came in and said, very good point about the isolation. So important. And I love to think as well that the Coffee at 11 show is something that we've heard back, it's filtered back through us, that people tune in, and it's very much like being in the cafe with us when they're looking at the replay. So yeah, thanks for that, Seamus. And West Cork and Donegal, the sunniest places in Ireland. I couldn't agree more, Seamus. Absolutely. Jean Evans, it's lovely to have you here, Jean, in the cafe. Jean says, it's lovely to hear your story. I've sent you a LinkedIn invite to connect. I think Eamon's going to pop in your LinkedIn URL there, so you can connect there with Alison. So Jean has already, she's one step ahead. She's already invited to connect, and she said and she's looking forward to Johan's sunshine. So thanks for that comment. So yes. Oh, this will do. Paul popped in and said, this will do for us. I said, this will do for us. Of course, Paul, of course. I knew I was saying it wrong. This will do for us. I love it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that phonetic correction. I needed it. So I think we do have time before I pop to Colm. This is where I have an invitation for you. If you'd like to raise a hand and ask Alison a question direct, your mic will be unmuted, or you can unmute. I see Tim has a hand. If anybody has another question after Tim, raise your hand and we'll try and get you if we can. Tim, in the meantime, if you'd unmute and ask Alison a question direct.
Thank you, Princess Shelley. Alison, a quick one for you. Your trip abroad and speaking a foreign language and trying to make it as, you know, naturalize yourself as much as you could. Did the accent cause any issues? Do you have any trouble at first getting people to understand our beautiful Irish accent or anything like that. Because I remember when I went to London, I was said, "You're great for the job, but you'll need elocution lessons."
Similar to you.
Yeah.
So the French in France, no. The French thought I had a lovely little Irish accent. There was, they can tell that I'm from overseas now at this stage, but they're not quite sure where. And it takes a little bit of time. It's not straight away. It's not immediate. My French accent is probably good enough that I pronounce well, but there's a little bit of a twinge there. However, when I moved to Lisburn from Donegal, they didn't understand me. So that was more of a change. And it's true what they say, mocking is catching. I picked up a Northern Ireland accent because I used to mock because they didn't understand me. So I would exaggeratedly speak with the Northern Ireland accent, and to my horror heard a telephone message a couple of years later and realized I had picked up the Northern Ireland accent out of my mockery. So be careful how you go.
Brilliant. Thank you. Brilliant.
Great question, Tim. Great question. Really, really good. And I think we can all relate to that, can't we? I'm sure we've all been told at some stage to slow down. We're talking so fast that someone might, I see Eamon and Seamus nodding, absolutely. I did see just before we went to Tim, I did see that Papa Smurf, Tommy O'Brien, had his hand up there. Tommy?
Well, first of all, hello, Alison.
Hi.
Bienvenue on your lawn when you come back.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you.
I'm just looking at you and listening to your story for the first time. Incredible what you've been through. And to see you there looking so happy and content and optimistic and serene, it's a great credit to you and all the people who are in your lives, who's in your life. Now, that's having said that. When I heard you lived in La Rochelle, by the way, I'm Colum's dad, and our daughter Patricia, who's in town at the moment with my wife, we went to La Rochelle about 35 years ago, and we went down to Ile d'Oloron and Mont Saint-Michel, and it brings back so many happy memories. So I'm delighted about that alone, but lovely to see you also. And we had crepes for the first time in La Rochelle. But what I was having to ask you was, I've been in sales all my life, and I was a knocking on the door man. Colin will tell you that story some other time. But I'm fascinated by you can sit there and say, well, I'm rolling out this, and you talk about things like evergreens, and what does evergreen mean, and how do you actually generate business to bring in income by sitting at a computer? Is that too big a question?
Not at all, no.
Okay.
So there are different ways. The clients, first of all, it's lovely to meet you, and I do know that you're Colin's dad, and I watched your interview as well, where you serenaded us very beautifully, so thank you for that as well. With regards to the marketing, it's actually the clients who do it themselves. So some clients want you to do business development for them, so knocking on the doors, which is more ringing on the phone at the moment, the way things are happening. So some will ask us to do business development. It's not what I particularly enjoy the most. I've done plenty of it in the past, but it's a lot longer process because you do need that lead-in time. So some people who are doing sales in this niche that I'm in will do business development as well. I do the closing, which means that they have a marketing funnel in place. So they have already done lead generation. Now, a lot of coaches and consultants will run webinars, for example, or their internet, or they run advertisements, and they have shown a little bit about the service that they're offering. And people then have simply clicked onto a link to say, I'm interested to know more about that service. I'd like to hear about it. It's potentially of interest to me. And they have a consultation call with somebody for an hour to find out if that service is what they're looking for. And that call comes through to me as opposed to the coach themselves. So that's how the leads come in. So some of these really big people in the States, for example, they have hundreds of calls that are booked in naturally through their organic traffic, through the advertising they're doing, and they have teams of people who are there doing those calls for them. They outsource them to teams like myself. Evergreen means that it's running all the time. So rather than having an event that they're doing where they're specifically getting a lot of people. They've maybe, well, they used to run actual events, physical events, and they would have a lot of people at one time. Now they're online events where they're maybe going through a theme or a challenge, or they're giving specific information, and after that they're launching a specific campaign. Evergreen means that it's going all the time. It's not stopping. It's consistent and constant.
Thank you very much. I heard everything you said. To let it sink in here, take me a little bit more time. I'll talk to Colin about it later. Thank you very much, and every good wish to you.
Thank you very much. It's a bit of a different concept. It's relatively new to us, certainly here, so it does take a bit of getting used to. But yeah, it's the way things are going now, with us all being behind computer screens.
Finally, we're talking about marketing, of course, which is your career. That girl, our daughter, Patricia, who was in La Rochelle, her daughter is in Paris at the moment, doing her second 2 years in global marketing. How about that?
Fair play to her. I hope she's enjoying it. Must give her a couple of addresses in nice restaurants in Paris. She could break Mammy's bank.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for such a wonderful question. And it's always great. This is what makes the quintessential cafe, is we get to listen in on the conversations and what interests and what spikes people's interest. So thanks for letting us listen in on that conversation. It was lovely to have you pop in, Tommy, and listen to that chat, and the proud granddad. So you can share those restaurants, I'm sure. Just before, I know I'm watching the time, but I did see Seamus, joining us in Ballincollig, has a very quick question for Alison, if you'd like to unmute. Seamus.
Alison, to say, first of all, thank you. And so many parallels. We had some of the best holidays in La Rochelle with my family. I worked in Donegal in the customs back in the 70s. So Donegal, and one of my girls is going through IVF at the moment. So it was...
all the best to her. I might have met
So,
you in the customs going across the border to Northern Ireland, who knows?
a bit safe. I probably was the worst customs guy for taking things off people. So I didn't last that long. But I love Donegal. It's such a wonderful place. And my wife, we met.
You just never know. I think there was some poor customs who wouldn't let me go with my pet hamsters, and a few tears did the trick.
It works every time. You'll melt their heart, Alison. A little question I want to ask at the end of it. It wasn't covered. What does Johan do, if I may ask? How would he make the transition back to Donegal? Can he work? Is he in the same? Is he in IT what he does that he could move with you to Donegal? I was just curious as to what. If I may ask.
Johan is. He has lots of little irons and fires, shall we say. So he has a business over here in France where he actually cleans and puts flowers on graves for people who are no longer near home. And he does that on a quarterly basis. So he's going to continue coming back to France once a quarter to look after those clients. So that's one thing that he's going to do. And as I mentioned, he has some medical training. He's a qualified emergency medical technician. So he can get his qualifications recognised in Ireland and work as an EMT. And they have a system in Ireland that is, I suppose, a flexible part-time system, which will allow him to take time off to come back to France and keep doing his own little business. So that seems to work quite well. So that's his plan. His stumbling block and nerves that come in with English, and especially, let's be honest, Donegal English, that's not going to be the easiest either. So
excellent. Seamus, I'm so glad that I saw your hand go up there at the last minute, just before passing back to the host, because, you know, it really does bring out, you know, the human interest like that. We just got to learn what Johan does, and I saw everybody's face, and of course as well, wishing you the very best with your own daughter. And I'm sure I saw that you could relate, and I saw everybody's, you know, I really do. Love is a thing that you feel when we get to know each other like this. And I felt it when you mentioned what your daughter is going through, and we wish you the very, very best for that going forward, and thank you for sharing that. I'm ready now. Thank you for coming in with that comment and your questions, Seamus. Really, really good, really added to it. And it's now time to pass back over to Mr. O'Brien as we bring another absolutely scrumptious show towards the end. Back to you, Colin. Thank you.
Oh, come here, Shelley. Thanks indeed. Thank you all. That was just beautiful. And you know what? I have to admit, loath though I am to admit it, this is actually one of my favourite parts of the show too. Right. It's the Princess Shelley piece. No, it's lovely. It really is. But it's great. And I'm very blessed. Look, this thing grew up through COVID, was born in COVID and found its teeth, cut its teeth in COVID. And Princess Shelley couldn't do without you. Eamon Smith couldn't do without you. Tim Kelly couldn't do without you. The Resident Pup. And of course, Katrina O'Brien couldn't do it without you. So it's teamwork makes the dream work and all the stuff that we've all heard, but it's so true. But it wouldn't be what it is without our special guests. And it also wouldn't be what it is without our lovely audience that pop in and make it very real. And, you know, I add on to what Shelley said there, Seamus, we wouldn't have known that and you needn't have shared it, but thank you for doing so. But it spoke specifically to me about what I had said to Alison a few minutes earlier, which is, Alison, you have no idea who this is going to impact. And there, within a few minutes, we've got real evidence of it. So thank you all. Thank you all. So that's it, bringing episode 3 of season 2 of the Coffee at 11 show to a close by saying thank you, Princess Shelley, heart emoji, one and all. Thank you, Eamon Smith, aka the Monk. Thank you, Katrina O'Brien. Thanks to Wigwam Coaching for making all this possible. And in particular, Alison Roux. You might unmute yourself, Alison, if you wouldn't mind. And we just simply say namaste.
Namaste. Merci beaucoup. Merci à vous tous.